Is a covered call a profit machine for beginners? Well, a covered call is an option strategy that can help you bring in extra profits, but there are some good and some bad points to this option strategy that you must know. Now, if you aren't a beginner and you always trade options, this video may seem a little bit basic to you, but if you're just getting started off, hopefully this video brings you a lot of value. Now, options can sometimes feel a little bit advanced, and some would say it even feels like gambling. My hope for you, though, is that this video will help you learn something about these options covered call strategies, and then you can decide and feel empowered to make that options covered call strategy your own if you wish to do so. So many of you have been commenting on my videos, asking me about option strategies, talk about options, how do we do options, and as always, ask and you shall receive. Now, as always, these videos are for entertainment purposes only. This is not financial advice. I'm just some dude on YouTube who sometimes looks a little bit like Woody. Now, professionals usually write covered calls to boost their investment income, but did you know that you can do this just as well as they can? So today, what I'm going to share is number one, the requirements of a covered call and why covered calls are a better options trading strategy for beginners. Number two, how to actually write a covered call using the Robinhood brokerage app. And number three, there is some warnings and some cautionary things that you need to know about with covered calls that could impact your future portfolio growth. So let's start off with the requirements. Now, a covered call, in its most basic term, means that you're selling a contract, giving a buyer of your contract the legal right but not the obligation to buy your shares of stock at a particular strike price anytime on or before your set expiration date, which I'll explain in just a moment. Now, in order to actually start a covered call option strategy, you need to own at least 100 shares of whatever stock or ETF or equity that you're trying to write the covered call for. Now, by owning these 100 shares of the stock, you have the ability to earn income on the premium received when you write the covered call. The goal in most cases is to collect the premium and keep your 100 shares. More on that later. Now, outside of covered calls, there are options trading strategies such as buying and selling puts, selling and buying naked calls and things like that. But the problem with those, especially for beginners, is there's a great risk of losing a ton of money if you're not doing it the right way. So we want to do the safer route, which is the covered call strategy. Now, in today's example, I'm going to use Apple. We're going to focus on the single stock Apple, ticker symbol AAPL. Now, the next requirement is that you do have to be eligible for options trading in whatever brokerage you're using. So since we're using Robinhood today, there is a very easy way to set it all up. All you have to do is go over to your account icon, click on investing, and then scroll down and apply for options trading. Now, if you don't already have Robinhood, why not get started today? You can get a free stock valued between $2.50 all the way up to $200 simply just for signing up today. So click the link in the description to take advantage of getting your free stock today. So after you meet those two requirements, it's now time to actually write a covered call. I'm going to pop up my iPhone screen and we'll do it right here on camera. Now, I'm doing this from a very basic point of view, because this is the best way to get started. And then from there, the goal would be to continue to scale up and learn more. So we're going to go and we're going to type in ticker symbol AAPL. Right there it is, Apple. Now, I only own a share of Apple in Robinhood. I own many more in many other brokerage apps. But remember, in order to do this, I would have to have a minimum of 100 shares. But what we want to do is click at the bottom of this particular trade and click on Trade Options. It's going to take us to this screen right here. Now, on this screen, it gives you a lot of information, but what we want to do is we want to first identify our expiration date. Now, an expiration date is focused on when this particular option expires, which means that on or before whatever expiration date you select, if it reaches a strike price, which we'll review in just a moment, that buyer can then exercise their right of the option. So, in the most basic form, so to keep it easy, I'm going to click first on the earliest date I can select, which is August 13th. Now, what we want to do, very first thing, is right here at the top. Do you see it says buy and sell? Make sure it's set to sell. And then if it says put, flip it over to call. We want to sell a call. Now, here's what we want to do. We can see right here that the share price is $145.60 as of the recording of this video. What we want to do is we want to look up here, and the goal would be to select a strike price that you're comfortable with. A strike price is what we see here where it says 146, 147, 148, 149, blah, 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 all the way to the top. Now, as you keep going up, do you notice how the money on the right-hand side goes down? Like down below here, do you see it says at 146, it says 86 cents, but as I scroll all the way up here, it only goes down to a penny. That is the premium that they pay per share based on this option. So here's a good example of this. If I would select $146 as my call, the premium is 86 cents per share, which means that the buyer has to pay you 86 cents per share in order to buy your 100 shares of Apple that you currently own. So here's a good example. One contract, as you can see right over here on the right-hand side, represents 100 shares. So what I'm saying to you is if Apple hits $146 between now and August 13th, you'll be able to buy my 100 shares of Apple at the strike price or above, and all you have to do is pay me $87. So my max profit for this option is $87. But here's the key. A couple things can happen. First of all, if by the date of expiration, which remember, if we go back here, it's August 13th. You see that at the top? If by August 13th, it doesn't hit $146, if it stays below that, this option expires, which means that they can't really claim the 100 shares that you own, which means that you walk away with $87 in profit, and it is what it is. Check out how awesome that is for a second. You get to keep your 100 shares of Apple, while at the same time adding in an additional $87 into your pocket. That is the cool thing when it comes down to options trading. But there's some warnings that we're going to discuss in just a few moments. But in this case, if I said, hey, I personally think that in this case, by my expiration date of August 13th, this thing right here, Apple's not going up to 146. I think it's going to stay right around 145. Heck, it might even drop down to 140. It might be going down. I'm going to go ahead and make this happen. I could hit review. Now, of course, in this example, it's going to say, hey, you don't have your 100 shares, boy. That's cool, but let's pretend we did. Let's pretend we have 100 shares. I'm going to hit review and execute this particular covered call option. So what's really cool about this is I'm confident this thing isn't going to 146. I'm going to get the profit anywhere from $86 to $88 and keep my 100 shares. Pretty awesome, isn't it? Think about this for a second as we scroll up. Look at this. By August 13th, $170 call, there's your strike price, only 1 penny. Come on. So if I hit one, if I do one contract, look, I'm gonna make $1. I mean, that's cool if you wanna make $1 over the next couple of days, but as you can see, because this is so high, 170, the likelihood of it hitting $170 in only a couple of days from now is highly unlikely, which is why the profit gets extremely low. But check this out for a second. If we come back here and we scroll up here at the top and we change our expiration date to as far out as we can, which right here says September 15th, 2023, so that gives us 2 years away. Look at the difference here. So you have all these options, and as you scroll up, now there's a lot more money to be made. Now, of course, you gotta wait for quite a long period of time, and at the same time, you gotta hope that Apple doesn't get that high unless you're trying to offload your 100 shares and sell them. So that's something to keep in mind. Look, for example, a $150 call. If I click on that and I do one contract, my max profit is $2,320 by 2023 in September. But personally for me, I wouldn't select this. Why? Because I am very confident in Apple and I think they're going to hit $150 or more. And I don't want to lose my 100 shares in my example. I want to keep my 100 shares. And that's a key point to think about. Now you might ask, well, wait a minute. Why is somebody willing, even if I go all the way back here to August 13th and I select $146, why does somebody want to pay me $88 to buy 100 shares at this particular strike price on August 13th or before? Why would somebody want to pay me extra money to buy that when they could just go into Robinhood themselves and buy it from the brokerage app? That doesn't make any sense. Well, here's where it makes a lot of sense. If somebody thinks that, hey, I'm keeping an eye on this, and if Apple all of a sudden comes out with this new epic release and it sends their shares to the moon, I want to take advantage of this at a particular price. I'm willing to pay you $88 to take advantage of your 100 shares and be able to take advantage of the profit that's going to come with the recent news that they announced. Let's say something crazy comes out, like they built the Apple car. It's going to rival Tesla. It has all the Apple technology built inside of it, and everybody's going to want it. It's then going to take this share price, and it's going to shoot it all the way up to $500 a share. Well, hey, if I paid you $89 or $88 or whatever that is, the premium price, to buy your 100 shares of stock at the price of $146 a share, I'm making a ton of money. I don't really care about the $88 because I soared all the way up to $500 a share with 100 shares of Apple. Hello, I'm doing just fine. But this brings us to the warning. This is something you've got to be cautious about when it comes down to this particular option strategy. So the first caution is you don't want to actually lose your 100 shares unless you're trying to offload them. Maybe you don't like Apple anymore, and instead of selling it at whatever the market price is or a couple of dollars more if it goes up, you decide you want to get some premium on top of selling your Apple stock for, say, $160 a share. Well, selling a covered call would be perfectly fine. Offload your 100 shares and walk away with it. But if you're in love with Apple, and it would actually break your heart to lose 100 shares of your Apple stock, you've got to be careful with this particular option strategy. The ultimate dream in this case is for you to keep your 100 shares while collecting the premium. But if for some reason that reaches the strike price, let's say you set an options trade, a covered call trade for $160, and it reaches that, and the buyer decides they want to exercise their option, which means they're going to buy your 100 shares for $160, your profit could be limited, which means you have unlimited loss. Now, unlimited loss doesn't mean that you have to pay all that money. What that means is, let's say it does go up to $500 a share, like I mentioned earlier. Well, if you didn't mess around with the covered call option, you would have been able to realize all of this growth of your 100 shares from the share price it's at today all the way up to $500 a share. But because you sold your option and they exercised that option at $160, you're losing the difference between $160 a share and $500 a share. That's a risk that you have to be willing to take when you mess around with covered calls. So the number 2 warning or cautionary tale I gotta say is your goal in this case when you're trading covered calls is to be rather blah with the stock. You don't actually want to be bullish. You don't want to hope that the stock goes to the moon, because if it does, you potentially lose money, as I just shared. The goal would be to say, you know what, Apple's just kind of hanging out. I think it's going to hover around the 145 price point. It might drop, but it's definitely not going to go up. So I'm going to write a covered call, knowing that on my expiration date, between now and that expiration date, not much is happening with this stock. So I have a very good confidence that I'll be able to keep my 100 shares and collect a premium. And that is what we want. Another warning is, a lot of people will do this and not think about the fact that a company is about to pay a dividend. Somebody just recently wrote a covered call on AT&T right before they dropped a dividend. And they were surprised that all of a sudden it popped up just enough, and they thought maybe the buyer wouldn't exercise the option and just let them walk away with the premium. But no, they exercised the option. Why? They were a couple of days away from the ex-dividend date, which means that that new buyer just got 100 shares of AT&T, and they're going to get a dividend payout that you just now missed out on because you wrote a covered call right before the dividend payout timeline. And you got to be careful about that. So always take a look at things before you start writing covered calls. It's just a warning. There's a lot to learn. This is just covered calls for beginners. I hope this gave you a little bit of an example of what this is all about. But be careful out there trading options. But as you get better at it, this could be a great way to add a little bit more profit to your investment strategy. So here's another video that can help you with your personal finance. Here's a video YouTube thinks you're going to like. And until next time, we'll see you on the next video.